Good evening, I'm Alan Jackson, and welcome to Nashville. America's two-party system is being threatened. Republicans are marching ahead with a fully transparent, public-facing agenda, and the Democratic Party is polling at an all-time low, using threats, violence, and profanity-laced anger to make its case. Only 25% of the country now says that it approves of the Democrats in Congress, and the number's dropping. So what's the opposition party doing to get back on its feet? Well, it's not. Instead, party officials from the top on down are literally sitting down, protesting and singing songs about how much they dislike the conservative agenda. And they have nothing good to say about the fact that the country is more safe, or that trillions of dollars worth of investments are being made by companies that want to build plants here and create new jobs, or that billions of dollars of government waste has been discovered and stopped. But their pattern is easy to see. Anything Trump does is wrong. Well, Doug McKelway has been through it all over the years. You know him as a former news anchor and reporter. He's joining us tonight from Florida. Doug, welcome back.
Good to see you, Alan. Glad to be back.
Well, to illustrate just how low the progressive liberals have gone, I want to start with a headline I read in the Washington Times. Left-wing assassination culture is on the rise. Well, as you know, it was written by your wife, reporter Susan Ferrecchio. She pointed out a survey that showed that nearly half of the left-leaning public could justify the assassinations of President Trump and Elon Musk. Doug, can you help us understand their perspective?
I'll try to. You know, it's really interesting to me what has happened. In some respects, this is a new phenomenon I think we're seeing in American politics. Sure, there's been lots of cutthroat battles over the decades, but this reflects, to my way of thinking, a kind of unhinged component of an opposition party that we have not seen, at least in my lifetime. Not that there have not been assassination attempts or assassinations, but it seems to me the widespread acceptance of this kind of phenomenon is something new. And I just quite by accident came across a quote that I think was just yesterday, and I took a freeze frame of the quote. It was from Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century German philosopher, who said this, and I think it applies exactly to what's going on with the Democratic Party and opposition to Donald Trump. Quote, "There is a point in history of society when it becomes so pathologically soft and tender that among other things, it sides even with those who harm it. Wow. It sides with criminals and does this quite seriously and honestly. Punishing somehow seems unfair to it and is certain that imagining punishment or being supposed to punish hurts it, arouses fear in it. It is not enough to render him undangerous. Why still punish? Punishing itself is terrible. With this question, herd morality, the morality of timidity, draws its ultimate consequence." Now, we're seeing this manifested in the huge objection to the deportation of illegal immigrants in this country by the left. There are certain individual cases which raise questions, I think, but the larger question of did people enter this country illegally, and did they break the law by entering the country illegally? Does that constitute an offense, and does it warrant or merit them being shipped back to the countries that they came from? Well, I think most rational, logical thinking people would say, yes, it does warrant shipment out of this country. But the left has become completely unhinged. They're siding, in effect, with those who broke the law by entering this country illegally. And it's a new phenomenon, I think, in this country that we've not seen. And it sort of reflects, to my way of thinking, hatred for hatred's sake. They despise Donald Trump. So anything that's associated with Donald Trump becomes, evil incarnate. Whether it's a guy who was heralded by the left, Elon Musk, for his electric cars and for his great advancements in rocketry and neuroscience, all kinds of things, now suddenly becomes a demon, and we must destroy him by reducing the stock value of his company Tesla, by torching the cars that he makes. Suddenly, one of the heroes of the left has become an enemy. Why? Simply because of his association with Donald Trump. It's irrational, I think, Alan, and I don't know what the way out of this is. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think we're in for 3.5 years of this extreme divisiveness with no chances of it healing at this point.
You know, when it's not directly aimed at the president, destroying property has also become a lot more common. Firebombing Tesla dealerships, keying the cars, shoving strangers in front of subway cars, shooting the healthcare CEO, stealing and randomly breaking laws. And now even a few judges taking the law into their own hands and helping violent gang members escape judgment. The end of this is hard to see, but it doesn't look like it's a good direction.
No, and that's why I say I don't see any resolution to this while Trump is in office, because the irrational hatred of him is become so extreme that there is no way out of this. I think this term Trump derangement system is a wonderful term because it so aptly describes what's going on. It is a kind of an irrational derangement, a hatred of a man, and I understand where a lot of it comes from. At least in the sense that we know Donald Trump is a disruptor. He can be very, very vulgar. He's not a role model in the traditional sense for your kids. But to see him as a great disruptor, a needed disruptor, as many Republicans and certainly the MAGA folks see him, is lost on the left entirely. And there's no accepting any of the need for a great disruptor in this country. I think it's absolutely required at this point in time because I think the United States government has strayed so vastly from what its original constitutional principles were that it's time for a great disruptor. And we have all been, over the past several decades, I think the frog in the slowly boiling pot of water. And we have now suddenly awakened under the tenure of Donald Trump to see what has actually happened with the great expansion of the federal government, the great waste and fraud in the federal government. It's huge, it's massive. The last time I was on this program with you, we talked about that, some of the extreme examples. And I remember talking about a friend of mine who is an editor at one of the main federal agencies, a former journalist, who whenever she writes a press release has to be approved by 50 people. That's one tiny little anecdote, but multiply that by thousands and thousands and thousands of times over, and you see what's going on and what has become of our federal government. The waste, fraud, and abuse in the Department of Defense pales in comparison to anything we've seen. It's the most inefficient bureaucracy. It needs overhauling, as do so many of these agencies.
Well, there is some movement on the law and order side. We're seeing Tom Homan and Kristi Noem track down and evict some migrant criminals and gang members. And the Attorney General is making things clear about the path ahead when she spoke about a big arrest at a nightclub full of people who are here illegally. It's a place that the Biden White House chose to ignore. Listen to her comments.
During the Biden administration, they received 170 911 calls to that club alone. That club we were just watching, 170 calls. Wouldn't you think that would have been a red flag? Nothing happened. Guns, shootings, ag batteries, nothing happened. So under Donald Trump, DEA, FBI, U.S. Marshals, ATF, ICE, everyone went in together. There were 300 agents all working hand in hand, and that's what Donald Trump has done so well. All of our agencies work so well together.
Doug, they're making progress, but it seems to me it's going to take perseverance on all of our parts to get law and order back, isn't it?
Oh, it's going to take tremendous perseverance, and there's a limited window to achieve that. We're not that far away from the midterm elections. What is it, 18 months or so? Traditionally, the opposition party wins seats, and there's virtually no seats or only a handful of seats for Republicans to lose in the House in November, 18 months from now. So when that happens, if as expected, the incumbent party, Donald Trump's party, loses the House and or the Senate, then he's hamstrung. Then he's relegated to executive orders and no major pieces of legislation. That's a real danger. The window is very short. It explains in large part why Donald Trump has imposed upon us and the media this flurry of executive orders and actions, which are basically nonstop since day one of his office. He's got to get it done quickly. Now, it may be overreach. In fact, there was a great op-ed in the Wall Street Journal this morning. I'll read a little bit of it because I think it really hits home about the dilemma, what's going on in Washington right now, what's going on with the Trump administration. And it says, quote, "A few years ago, temperamentally conservative Americans wouldn't have countenanced the raucous methods of Mr. Trump. He has many of the qualities our mothers warned us against: self-absorption, vulgarity, braggadocio, lack of humility. Yet, in our current moment, he seems the only political figure with the fearlessness and vigor needed to clear the blockages, to cut out the tumors, and reset our national health." Now, then it goes on to hit the key point, which I was just making here. It says, "The Trump era could end in flaming hubris and overreach. From Odysseus to Napoleon, that's the way bold chargers have always fallen. Overconfidence and pride causes fatal mistakes." That's the juncture that we are at right now in the United States, I think. We are at this hinge point. Certainly the key illustration of this is with the tariffs. They are imposing economic hardship on the United States right now, even though we've got this 90-day pause, simply because of uncertainty. We're hearing of tremendous backlogs in European and Asian ports, prices already going up. People who are in the import and export business in this country are seeing their prices already rise. Real consternation there. Is this trade war battle going to be won by the Trump administration, or is he going to lose it? No one can predict that at this point. We've got the 90-day pause in effect right now. When it ends, we don't know. We saw the stock market initially take a tremendous dive. It has recouped most of those losses, but it's volatile right now. And how this all shakes out, we don't know. But it is in many respects a Hail Mary pass by Donald Trump. If it works, he's going to be a hero. If it fails, he's going to face the same results that Odysseus to Napoleon faced, as that prescient op-ed in the Wall Street Journal suggested that I just read.
Well, Doug, stay with us for another segment. There's more to discuss. And later, I have some thoughts on how this is all addressed from a biblical worldview. There are reasons for hope, even with what we're all witnessing. We'll be right back. Hey, there's a battle raging in the earth, and it's of greater significance than what's taking place between Russia and Ukraine, or even what's happening between Republicans and Democrats, or progressives and conservatives. Wherever you imagine there's a conflict, I'm talking about a spiritual battle. Spiritual forces, they'll impact your life today, I assure you. Well, I've written a book, Angels, Demons, and You, to help us be prepared to be triumphant in the midst of this conflict. We're not conscientious objectors, we're ambassadors for a kingdom.
We're in a spiritual battle, but we don't need to be afraid. We need to prepare. Pastor Allen's new book, Angels, Demons, and You, offers compelling biblical evidence about angels and demons and their roles in the heavens, on earth, and in our lives. Find practical tools to help you live without fear and stand firm in your faith. Request your copy of Angels, Demons, and You today when you donate $30 or more at ajnow.com/angels.
We're back now with reporter and news anchor Doug McKelway. You know, it's not an election year, but the economy is still one of the top issues. So there's a lot of buzz on Capitol Hill about the budget and tax bill that's taking shape. The goal is to bring spending down while keeping the lower tax rates in place. Listen to what Speaker Johnson had to say.
The reason it's going to be the biggest legislation, I think, in many decades that Congress has passed is because not only are we going to give everybody a tax break, right? They're not going to have the largest tax increase in U.S. history at the end of this year. It's going to help hardworking families. It's going to be turbo boost to the economy, because I think this will send a message of stability to the markets, the bond market, the stock market, investors, job creators, entrepreneurs, that they have their tax rates permanent and solidified. They know they can plan accordingly, and that people have more money in their pocket to spend on their own families and their own needs and obligations.
You know, the Speaker's margin is thin, but do you think the big, beautiful bill, as the President likes to call it, will get approved?
Hard to say. Again, it's one of these great uncertainties, this hinge point that we are at right now in American history. It is absolutely crucial for the Trump agenda and for his success as a president that it does get passed. But there are many, many obstacles, largely in the Senate, and we'll see where that goes. They're trying to do this under reconciliation, which requires just a simple majority. So it certainly narrows the risk to some extent. But So much hinges on the Trump administration's success on this budget and the tax bill. One thing for certain, I have seen that the committee in the House has now approved of a major increase in budgeting for the Defense Department, which is badly needed given the threats that we are facing from China and other economic adversaries and potential enemies. The United States defense is in a sad state right now. We're seeing, increases in recruitment, which is a really good sign. But these kind of big ticket items of changing shipbuilding and building ships in the United States, and more airplanes are very, very expensive, and they take a long time to do. So we'll see what happens with that. But it's a long, drawn out process. The tax cut is so important because, as you know, President Trump has said, among other things, that he hopes to reduce the tax burden on Americans in part through these tariffs. He says we may be able to get rid of a large share of our taxes in this country if the tariffs work. But there's no guarantee that the tariffs are going to work. And here's my great concern about all this, and it's all part of this piece of a puzzle. All these things sort of intertwine about the future of the Trump administration and our tax burdens and our economic health. And it is that in Great China, they can impose greater hardship on their populace than Donald Trump can do in the United States, simply because China is a totalitarian country. President Xi can tell the Chinese populace and factory workers, okay, you know how we're going to fight this trade war with the United States? We're going to make all workers put in 6.5 days of work now. We're going to reduce your salary by 25%, and we're going to reduce your lunch hour by 15 minutes. That way, we'll win this trade battle. Donald Trump can't do that to the American citizen. A lot of American citizens are already hard-pressed from the inflation battles that we saw during the Biden administration, and they are in no mood for higher prices. But that's what's happening right now. The Trump administration says that this is a temporary situation while these battles are being fought, and that prices will come down when we win this battle. But winning that battle is going to be very, very difficult against a country like China, which, as I say, can impose hardship to a greater degree on its own people than we can impose on our people in this country.
Well, thank you for spending time with us today, Doug. It's great to be able to call on your experience when there's so much going on.
My pleasure. Thank you, Alan. Really appreciate it, and great to see you.
In a moment, I'll share my thoughts on how to process all these moving parts. Hi, TBN family. We live in uncertain times. That's why I want to share the importance of being financially prepared to help protect your retirement and your savings. Many Americans are turning to gold and silver to protect themselves. I want to strongly encourage you to contact Preserve Gold. They have a 5-star rating. They're experts in this important field. Preserve Gold is giving away a free wealth protection guide that explains it thoroughly. Please call or text them today. You'll be glad you did.
Call now 866-785-8995 for your free information kit to learn how you can put physical gold and silver into an IRA or 401k, and how you can purchase precious metals for delivery direct to your home. Preserve Gold has hundreds of 5-star reviews and millions of dollars in trusted transactions. And you can get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase. Just call 866-785-8995 or text Jackson to 50505.
How do we understand a world of turmoil and confusion and conflicting ideals? Well, I've written a new book that I think will help. It's called Angels, Demons, and You, Understanding Spiritual Influences in Our Lives. I don't believe a political understanding is sufficient to know what's happening in our world. We need to understand the spiritual forces that are impacting us every day. Well, I wrote this book to help you navigate that in a way that will bring God's victory into your life. Read it. I believe it'll be a blessing. I've heard it a lot since the election. People have come up to me and said that they were tired of politics, tired of the bickering and the back and forth with family and friends, whomever. They've said to me, let the elected officials go fix the problem. I want to go back to my life. I want to stop paying attention. It's somebody else's problem to fix now. Let them go fix it. Well, that thought process is deeply misguided. We're living in a season where the truth is still not being celebrated. We have the Illinois state governor calling for mass disruption even saying, and I quote, "Republicans cannot know a moment of peace," end quote. When he made that statement, he was upset about the administration following through on the campaign promise to make our streets safer and deport violent people who are here illegally. I believe we're going to have to endure to walk through and overcome a season of confusion, a bit of chaos and disruption, because the people that initiated this don't want to see the momentum of destruction disrupted. The truth is, nobody in Washington, D.C. is going to bring a lasting solution to our problems. The future of our nation will depend upon the hearts of God's people more than it will depend on political parties or economic policies. Today marks the National Day of Prayer. It's a U.S. observance held annually on the first Thursday of May, encouraging Americans to pray for the nation and its leaders. Communities across the country are holding prayer gatherings at churches, city halls, and schools. I promise you, those prayers give us a greater promise of hope than any threat we see on the horizon. God does make a difference. When we come back, we're going to be reading some of your emails. Hey, I want to give you a personal invitation to join my podcast, Culture and Christianity.
For a person to think that the Bible is not political, you don't know the Bible.
We're trying to understand how to take our faith outside the walls of the church and live it out in the marketplace.
He will show you what to do, whether it's in our communities, in our country, or other places in the world.
So I brought in some friends, some people that are trying to do this.
How could anyone call themselves Christian and be pro-choice? Is beyond my comprehension.
But I think he wanted them open and in need of him every day.
We have been living through a season of unprecedented deception, propaganda, manipulation.
Everybody says, Israel is attacking schools in the Gaza Strip.
I want to be a part of seeing culture and Christianity intersect. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Thank you for taking the time to send your emails. I always look forward to reading your thoughts and perspectives. Anthony from Indiana wrote, "I appreciate the biblical views on your show. I was wondering if you could speak to the scripture reference in Leviticus 19:33 and tell us what the difference is between an alien as described in the scripture and an illegal or undocumented trespasser that we're dealing with now in America." Anthony, it's a really good question. And I think the answer is pretty straightforward. I believe the coaching being given from Scripture helps us refer to an individual that we find amongst us that maybe is different from us or isn't like us. And we're told to treat them with respect and dignity. There's a very different perspective in Scripture when there is mass migrations of people, when there are invading groups of people who are coming to plunder the land. Multiple times, God raised up judges to lead armies to expel those people. It's not a time for compassion, it's a time to protect the integrity of our nation. Well, finally tonight, I'd like to say that with your help, we're getting more and more people watching our show each week. Truth and hope, they cut through all the noise. I can see it in the emails we receive. Those of you who write telling us how grateful you are to have found a place where you can trust what you hear. The world is certainly challenging enough to navigate. If you also have to navigate what's real and what's fake, it's a lot more difficult. So let's keep going. I'd like you to ask a friend or a neighbor to watch as well. Spread the word, and then we'll spread the truth. Thank you for watching tonight. I'm Alan Jackson, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Good night.